Hello everyone, welcome to MBBS classes. Myself Dr. Hanifa. Today in this video I'll be talking on anatomy of cervical fascia. So cervical fascia means the fascias which are present in the neck, and these cervical fascias, they are an important layer of the neck, and these fascias, they contribute in the formation of the different spaces in the neck. Knowing the anatomy of the cervical fascia is very much important to manage the diseases of the deep neck space. It may be the deep neck space infections, it may be the tumors of the deep neck space. So the cervical fascias, it has two layers, superficial layer and the deep cervical fascia. The deep cervical fascia, again, it consists of four distinct layers. So these are the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, pretracheal fascia, prevertebral fascia, and the carotid sheaths. Now coming to the superficial cervical fascia. The superficial cervical fascia, it is a very thin delicate fascia which is present just beneath the skin. It is so thin that while incising the neck, it may be difficult to identify also. It extends superiorly from the epicranium, inferiorly till the axilla and the upper chest. If we see the structures which are present deep to the cervical fascia, fat is present, then a very thin muscle is found, that is the platysma muscle, and we get the cutaneous nerves, superficial veins and the lymph nodes. But remember one thing, the superficial cervical fascia, it does not contribute in the formation of deep neck space. So the space which is deep to the superficial cervical fascia is by definition not a deep neck space. So the superficial cervical fascia, just beneath it is present a thin muscle which is called as platysma. This platysma, as you can see in this diagram, it is a thin quadrilateral sheet of muscle which originates from the superficial fascias of the thorax. Then it runs upwards to attach to the mandible, and it blends with the muscles on the face, and it runs superficial to the clavicle and the sternocleidomastoid. It is innervated by the cervical branch of the facial nerve. The second component of the cervical fascia is the deep cervical fascia. So deep cervical fascias, they are clinically important because they contribute to the formation of the various facial spaces in the neck or the deep neck spaces. Moreover, the deep cervical fascia, which is also called as the fascia colli, it provides capsule to the glands. It invests the muscles of the neck region, provides the protective sheets around the very important neurovascular structures running through the neck, and it forms the fascial planes to direct the spread of infection or the pus in the neck. So we know that the deep cervical fascia, it has four layers. The first is the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So if you see here, this is an axial section of the neck, infrahyoid level. You can see here the green color is the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, which surrounds all the structures of the neck and the muscles of the mastication, like masseter, buccinator, digastric and mylohyoid muscle. Since it is investing all the muscles of the neck, it is known as the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. Next cervical fascia is the pretracheal fascia. From the name itself, you can make out that means which is surrounding the trachea. So this fascia, it encloses the viscera of the neck, like the larynx and the trachea, thyroid gland and the esophagus. So the pretracheal fascia, it helps in the formation of the visceral compartment of the neck. The third fascia is the prevertebral fascia, which surrounds the cervical vertebra, or you can say the vertebral column, and the attached deep muscles of the neck. The fourth layer of the deep cervical fascia is the carotid sheath, which gets the contribution from the investing layer, from the pretracheal layer and from the prevertebral layer. And this carotid sheath, it surrounds the internal jugular vein, common carotid artery and the vagus nerve. Now, if we see the different fascias, you can see here the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. It, it is present on both the sides. it splits to enclose the sternocleidomastoid anteriorly and the infrahyoid muscles, that is the sternohyoid and the sternothyroid muscles. Then it again unites and forms the roof of the posterior triangle, and again it splits to enclose the trapezius muscle. So this is the trapezius muscle. So this is the investing layer. Then this is the pretracheal layer which is surrounding the viscera of the neck. Then the prevertebral layer, you can see here, this is the yellow color, is the prevertebral fascia which is enclosing the vertebral column and the deep muscles of the neck. Now let's see the attachment of the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So we know that it is called investing layer because it invests the muscles of the neck and the muscles of the mastication. So if we see the superior attachment, it is attached superiorly to the external occipital protuberance. This is the external occipital protuberance. It is attached to the superior nuchal line and to the mastoids. So this is the superior attachment. Then if we go laterally, this investing layer is attached to the zygomatic bone and the mastoid process. And in here you cannot see the mandible. Superiorly it gets attachment to the lower border of the mandible also. So this is the superior attachment of the investing layer, external occipital protuberance, superior nuchal line, mastoid process. If you see, this is the mastoid process, then zygoma, lower border of the mandible, then it is attached to the hyoid bone, and inferiorly if we see the attachment, it is attached to the spine of the scapula, acromion process, upper aspect of the clavicle and the jugular notch. If we see the posterior attachment, it is attached posteriorly to the ligamentum nuchae and the spinous process of the C7 vertebra. So when we're talking about the investing layer, it invests the muscles of the neck, muscles of the mastication, it invests the glands, it helps in the formation of the spaces of the neck. Now we'll come one by one. So the muscles which are enclosed in the investing layer are the sternocleidomastoid and the trapezius and the infrahyoid muscles. The infrahyoid muscles are the sternohyoid, sternothyroid, omohyoid muscles and the thyroid muscles. So if you see here, this is an axial section of the neck, infrahyoid level, which is showing the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. Now let's see how it runs. This fascia, if we start from interior, into it splits and it encloses the sternocleidomastoid and the infrahyoid muscles. Then it reunites, it forms the roof of the posterior triangle. This is the part of the anterior triangle. This is the posterior triangle. Then it splits again to the enclose the trapezius muscle. Then it reunites with its counterpart from the other side. This investing layer of the deep cervical fascia is pierced by the external and the anterior jugular vein, lesser occipital nerve, greater auricular nerve, transverse cervical nerve, and the supraclavicular nerve, and all these they pierce the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So it encloses the glands. So the glands which are enclosed by the deep investing layer are the submandibular gland and the parotid gland. So it defines the different spaces like parotid space, submandibular space and the masticator space. If you see here, this is a suprahyoid. This is an axial section of the neck above the level of hyoid bone. So if you see here, this is the submandibular gland, this is the parotid gland, and this is the part of the mandible. So if we trace the investing layer in the suprahyoid region of the neck, we can see that the investing layer, it splits to enclose the submandibular gland, and as it goes posteriorly at the lower pole of the parotid, it encloses the parotid gland also. So now let us concentrate on the submandibular gland. So if you see here, this blue color is the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So we know that when the fascia it is enclosing any muscle, any glands, it always splits and it encloses that structure. So if you see here, This is the submandibular gland. This fascia, it splits into two, the superficial limb and the deep limb. The superficial layer of the investing layer, it covers the superficial surface of the submandibular gland and it is attached to the lower border of the mandible. So this is the mandible, this is the lower border, the superficial limb is attached here. The deep layer of the investing layer, it covers the deep surface of the submandibular gland and it is attached to the mylohyoid line of the mandible, and this is the mylohyoid muscle. So this is how the fascia it splits and it encloses the submandibular gland. The second gland which is enclosed is the parotid gland. If you see here, this is the parotid gland. These are the two figures where you can see the different views of the parotid gland. The parotid gland is enclosed in a fibrous capsule called the parotid capsule, and this parotid capsule is formed by this tough investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So what happens? This fascia, it divides in the region between the angle of the mandible and the mastoid process. So this is the mastoid process and the angle of the mandible cannot be seen here. So it divides into two, superficial lamina of the parotid fascia and the deep lamina. So the superficial lamina of the parotid fascia, it covers the superficial aspect of the parotid gland. The superficial lamina is very thick in nature, it is strong and it is unyielding, and it gets attached to the zygomatic arch. So if you see here, this is the location of the parotid gland. So the fascia, after it divides, it attaches itself to the zygomatic arch. Then the deep lamina of the parotid fascia, it is present deep to the gland and it gets attached to the tympanic plate and the styloid process. So if you see here in the bone, this is the tympanic plate and this is the styloid process. So the deep lamina will be attached to the tympanic and the styloid process. This superficial lamina, it blends itself with the epimysium of the masseter muscle, and that is why it is called as the parotid-masseteric fascia. If you see this diagram, this is the ramus of the mandible and this is the mastoid process. So if we see here, the parotid gland is enclosed by the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia, and here you can see some lymph nodes, and these lymph nodes are present deep to the fascia. So what happens if there is any inflammation of these parotid nodes, and because the superficial layer is very thick, it is unyielding, if any inflammation of the parotid gland or the lymph nodes, it's very much painful. Since we know that the investing layer, it surrounds the muscles of the mastication also. So it helps in the formation of certain spaces in the face. So one of the space is the masticator space. If you see here, this is a part of the sphenoid bone. These are the lateral pterygoid plate and the medial pterygoid plate. This is the mandible. This is the zygoma. So if you see here, this is the masseter muscle, this is the medial pterygoid muscle, and the masseteric space is formed by the masseter muscle, medial and the lateral pterygoid, and the temporalis muscle. And remember, this masticator space is continuous superiorly to the temporal space, posteriorly it is related to the parotid space, and posteromedially it is related to the parapharyngeal space. So the fascia, it helps in the different compartmentalization of the head and neck area, and one space is interrelated to the another space via these fascial layer. The investing layer, it encloses two spaces in the neck. The first space is the suprasternal space of the Burns and the second is called as the supraclavicular space. So if we trace the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia at the lower part of the neck, we will see that it splits at the two areas. The first, it splits at the level of the sternum, and second, it splits at the level of the just above the clavicle. So if you look at this diagram, this investing layer, it is splitting into two at just above the sternum area, and this is called the suprasternal space of Burns. The structures which are present in the suprasternal space of Burns are the external head of the sternocleidomastoid, jugular venous arch, interclavicular ligament, and the lymph nodes. Now again, the investing layer, it splits above the clavicle, and this space is called the supraclavicular space. So remember, the structures which are present in the supraclavicular space are the terminal end of the external jugular vein and the supraclavicular nerves. So this is in detail about the investing layer of the deep cervical fascia. So now we'll move on to the pretracheal fascia. So the pretracheal fascia, it covers the front, the sides of the trachea, hence it is called the pretracheal fascia. So we know that the pretracheal fascia, it helps in covering the viscera of the neck, like the thyroid gland, trachea, larynx, and the esophagus. So if you see here, this is the pretracheal fascia. It splits to enclose the thyroid gland, and it is attached to the oblique line of the thyroid cartilage. So if you see here, this is the trachea, and this is the thyroid gland, and this is the esophageal layer. So the pretracheal fascia, it encloses the posterior part of the esophagus, and the portion of the pretracheal fascia which is present posterior to the esophagus is called as the buccopharyngeal fascia. And this buccopharyngeal fascia, it begins at the base of the skull and it ends inferiorly at the thoracic cavity. Now let's see the clinical importance of this pretracheal fascia. So there is a ligament of Berry which is sometimes asked in exams. So this ligament of Berry, it is a condensation of the pretracheal fascia located at the posterior aspect of the thyroid gland, and it connects the lateral lobe of the thyroid to the cricoid cartilage. So when the thyroid gland is attached to the trachea, there is a condensation of the fibers attaching this gland to the trachea, and this condensed fiber is called as the ligament of Berry. It is seen that the attachment of the pretracheal fascia to the cartilages of the larynx and to the thyroid gland allows the thyroid gland movement up and down during the swallowing. So how it is helpful if there is any swelling or any neck mass, and to rule out whether it is arising from the thyroid region, we ask the patient to swallow. So if any neck mass is moving up and down during the swallowing, then probably the site of origin could be in the thyroid region. Moreover, this pretracheal fascia, since it surrounds the viscera, it provides the slippery surface to allow the movement of the trachea during the swallowing. The third component of the deep cervical fascia is the prevertebral fascia. So the prevertebral fascia, from the name itself you can make out it, that means which is present in front of the vertebra. So the prevertebral fascia, it encloses the vertebral column and the deep neck muscles. It is an extremely strong fascia. If we see the extension, it extends superiorly from the base of the skull, and it continues inferiorly in the superior mediastinum in front of the longus colli muscles. It is seen that in the superior mediastinum, it blends with the anterior longitudinal ligament of the upper thoracic vertebra T1 to T3. This muscle, it surrounds the deep neck muscles like anterior, middle, and the posterior scalene muscles and the deep muscles of the back. Now, if we see the attachment of this prevertebral fascia superiorly from the base of the skull, inferiorly we have seen in the superior mediastinum. So, if you see here, this is the prevertebral fascia. This prevertebral fascia, it is attached posteriorly along the length of the ligamentum nuchae. This is the area of the ligamentum nuchae, and superiorly it forms a circle which attaches this to the bone of the skull. And if we see the bony attachment of these fascias in a circular manner, anteriorly it is seen that it is attached to the basilar part of the occipital bone, laterally to the mastoid process, posteriorly along the superior nuchal line and the external occipital protuberance. Now the last component of the deep cervical fascia is the carotid sheet. The carotid sheet, it is a tubular condensation of the deep cervical fascias which gets contribution from the other three fascias. It extends superiorly from the skull base and inferiorly up to the arch of the aorta. If we look at the thickness of this carotid sheet, it is seen that it is thick around the carotid arteries and it is thin over the internal jugular vein. So since it is thin over the IJV, it allows its expansion during the increased venous return. So if you see here, this is the carotid sheet which is enclosing the internal jugular vein, common carotid artery, and the vagus nerve is present inside the sheet, whereas the ansa cervicalis is and the cervical sympathetic chain is present outside the sheet. Ansa cervicalis is present in the interior part and the cervical sympathetic chain is present in the posterior aspect. So the vagus nerve, if you see here, it lies posteriorly between the vein and the arteries. And the cervical sympathetic chain, it is related to the posterior wall and it is seen to be plastered to the prevertebral fascia. So when we are talking about the deep fascias, I'll just tell in short about the retropharyngeal space and the prevertebral space today. So the retropharyngeal space, it is a space present between the prevertebral layer and the buccopharyngeal fascia. So if there is any infection of the retropharyngeal space, it can pass down behind the esophagus. So this is the area of the retropharyngeal space. So any abscess in this area, it can extend down into the posterior mediastinum and it will produce a paramedian unilateral bulge in the posterior pharyngeal wall. The prevertebral space, if you see here, this is the yellow colored is the prevertebral fascia and the prevertebral space, it is a space between the prevertebral fascia and the front of the vertebral bodies. The clinical importance, if you see here, any pus which is collected in the prevertebral space can travel forward and produce again a midline bulge in the posterior pharyngeal wall. Today we are not talking in details about the clinical presentation of the different neck space and the pus in the prevertebral space. It is seen that it can travel laterally into the posterior triangle here. The pus from here can travel up to the posterior triangle formed by the prevertebral fascia and from here it can track along the axillary sheet into the axilla or the arms also. So with this I come to an end of this video. Thank you for watching this video.